Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Pesek. I'm a Senior Liaison Officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization's Liaison Office for North America based in Washington, D.C. And I will be serving as moderator of our event today. On behalf of FAO and Duke University, I would like to thank all of you for joining this session on strengthening the science policy nexus for sustainable fisheries, which is framed around a very exciting new partnership between FAO and Duke, and about which you will soon hear much more. But before proceeding with our formal program, there are a few important housekeeping items I would like to cover first. Firstly, I would like to advise you that this event is being recorded and that the event is being live streamed on Twitter at FAO North America. We've had a few hundred people register to join this discussion, so clearly there's no shortage of interest in this topic. We're very eager to hear from all of you in the audience, so to participate in the question and answer segment of the event, I would like to encourage all of you to submit your questions for our speakers in the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom center of your screens. And as you do so, please be sure to specify which speaker your question is intended for, and please also feel free to identify yourself. Due to time constraints, I will not be able to provide full and proper introductions for our very distinguished group of speakers, but their biographies are hyperlinked in the Q&A box for your ease of reference. Lastly, I would like to provide an outline of our event and how it will be structured. In a moment, I will give the floor to my FAO colleague, Vimlendra Sharan, to offer welcoming remarks. Thereafter, we will hear from Marcela Villarreal, who's the Director of Partnerships and UN Collaborations at FAO in Rome, who will address the role of partnerships in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We will then hear from Toddi Stillman, Stanback Dean of the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University, on creating knowledge about coastal marine social ecological systems in service of humanity. Next, we will have the good fortune of hearing from Manuel Barange, the Director of the Fisheries Division at FAO, and he will address the role of young researchers in developing decision-making tools for innovative solutions for small-scale fisheries. Immediately following Manuel's remarks, we will view a video collage of Duke University student experiences working on FAO fisheries projects. And thereafter, we will learn about the Illuminating Hidden Harvests project, the contribution of small-scale fisheries to sustainable development. This segment will feature presentations from Giulia Gorelli, the Illuminating Hidden Harvest Project Coordinator, as well as from Mancha Cisneros, who is an IHH postdoctoral associate at Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment. And last but not least, we will then hear from all of you, the members of the audience, with your questions for our speakers during the Q&A portion of the event. We will endeavor to end the session promptly at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 4 p.m. in Rome. I now have the pleasure of introducing Vimlendra Sharan, Director of FAO's Liaison Office for North America, based in Washington, D.C., to offer welcoming remarks. Vimlendra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom, and good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on strengthening the science policy nexus of sustainable fisheries that launches the new partnership between FAO and Duke University. The importance of small-scale fisheries can never be overemphasized. Needless to say, small-scale fisheries make an important contribution to nutrition, food security, sustainable livelihoods, and poverty alleviation. And this is truer in developing part of the globe. Despite the important role they play, the issue constraining sustainable development of small-scale fisheries remains poorly understood even today. And this is where the partnership is going to play a vital role. Neil Armstrong, the famous astronaut, was once asked to define research, and he did so in the simplest of words, and I take this opportunity to just quote him. He said, "Research is creation of new knowledge." And I'm confident that this marriage of science and policy that we are going to see today between FAO, or rather which has happened between FAO and Duke University, will usher in an era where much needed knowledge will be created to inform policies and programs. The governance issues of small-scale fisheries, as also the policy issues, are often very complex and demanding. And good approaches and best practices are still in the process of being explored and defined across the wide range of social, environmental, and economic conditions in which they are encountered. Earlier work, say frameworks such as the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication, have helped. But there's still so much to do to drive knowledge and evidence-based policymaking for supporting healthy diets and sustainable livelihoods. Today's event will highlight how FAO and Duke University, in partnership, can pool their expertise and knowledge resources to provide policymakers with the latest science-based evidence that is necessary to ensure that all small-scale fisheries continue to be sustainable for all. We will hear about one example of collaboration which is already underway, and Tom mentioned that, Illuminating Hidden Harvests, a global study on contributions and impacts of small-scale fisheries in the context of sustainable development. We will also learn firsthand on how the FAO Duke University partnership can prepare young researchers to lead the next generation of food security professionals to act as future caretakers of our planet. So thank you for your interest, and thank you for joining in, and thank you for attending this webinar. Together with you, I look forward to hearing from our speakers on this new and important partnership on how we can create and disseminate the scientific tools, data, innovations, which will help us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. Thank you very much. Tom.
Thank you, Vimlendra, for getting us started with those excellent welcoming remarks. I now have the great pleasure of introducing Marcela Villarreal, who's had a very long and distinguished career at FAO. As I mentioned earlier, she currently serves as the Director of Partnerships and UN Collaborations at FAO based in Rome. Marcela will discuss the role of partnerships in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Marcela, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. It's indeed a big pleasure to be with you today at this virtual event that celebrates the new partnership between FAO and Duke University, which was formalized recently through a memorandum of understanding signed on the 30th of September, just passed. First of all, I'd like to express my great thanks to our colleagues in our FAO Washington office for hosting today's, I think, very important event to commemorate this partnership. The Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda can only be realized with a global partnerships and cooperation framework. We believe that in order to achieve any one of the 17 goals of the agenda, you need to do it with others. You cannot do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. Governments cannot do it alone, and then anybody around the governments cannot do it on their own either. So strong partnerships are at the core of the world being to be able to achieve these goals. And today we should say actually of getting ourselves back on track, because only 6 of them are on track as we speak. A successful development agenda requires all of these partnerships that need to be inclusive at the global, regional, national, and local levels. And they need to be built upon principles and values, and upon a shared vision and shared goals where we place people and planet at the center. FAO's Partnerships and UN Collaboration Division has a mandate to support FAO members through building strategic alliances with non-state actors, and this includes, of course, private sector, civil society, and very importantly, academic and research institutions, and also across the UN, to better deliver on its mandate and in achieving this, I would say, this agenda that is actually quite ambitious. So with the partnerships, they play a key role in enhancing FAO's programs and work, and to contribute to, very importantly, also build capacities at country level. Building capacities at country level for us is one of the strategic areas of work that we can develop together. This is why we so much value our partnerships with the academia and research institutes, because investing in capacity development at the local level and country level is a long-term investment that will reap benefits throughout the years to come. FAO and universities and research institutions, we believe, are actually natural partners because of their common view to developing and disseminating scientific evidence-based solutions to strengthen food and nutrition security. Since 2014, FAO has signed more than 75 partnership agreements with academia and research institutions across the globe. These partnerships are contributing to bringing expertise to multi-stakeholder dialogues, mobilizing innovations and expertise, leveraging FAO knowledge, and to strengthen capacities of youth and food security professionals, increasing awareness in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and FAO initiatives, and stimulating resource mobilization done jointly, co-resource mobilization, if you would like. During the COVID pandemic, which we're all suffering at different stages, but very strongly, the global economy is projected to contract sharply in 2020, experiencing its worst recession since the Great Depression, affecting livelihoods of the most vulnerable, of course, including fisherfolk. And not only, at FAO, we're very worried that this health pandemic is easily convertible into a food security crisis. And we're putting in our efforts to ensuring that this will not happen. However, our estimates already show that just this year, we could have an additional 80 million to 130 million additional people suffering hunger because of the effects of this pandemic. So strong international cooperation is needed now more than ever to ensure that countries have the means to recover from the pandemic, build back better, and get back on track towards the Sustainable Development Goals. The partnership between FAO and Duke University has two clear goals, as Vimlendra so nicely stated. So building a scientific evidence base, which will help policymakers in developing new frameworks and solutions to sustainably support the fisheries sector, and creating a nurturing environment to prepare future science practitioners who will be taking on the mandate of food security and caretaking of our planet in the future. We are very excited with this new partnership with Duke University. We believe it's a very important step forward, supporting sustainable seafood and small-scale fisheries and helping FAO members in their achievement of the SDGs now and in the future. We look very much forward to achieving great outcomes with Duke University that we are sure will benefit small fisher folk worldwide. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Marcela, for that clear and timely reminder of the critical importance of partnerships and that we're stronger together and that this must be an all hands on deck effort if we are to maximize our impact and ultimately be successful. I am now very pleased to introduce Toddi Stillman, the Stanback Dean of the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University. Dr. Stillman will address the question of creating knowledge about coastal marine social ecological systems in service of humanity. Dr. Stillman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Tom. And I'm very excited to be here this morning to celebrate this partnership with all of you. Marcela, you couldn't have set me up better in terms of the sentiments that I also echo in terms of what you have just said. And I'm just very excited that we are able to celebrate this. I only wish we could be doing it in person with a chance to meet each other, but hopefully that will happen sometime in the future. And I will very much look forward to that opportunity when it does avail itself. So let me just start briefly by introducing who we are here at Duke University for all of you wonderful folks at FAO that might not know who we are already. Duke University is a large university, as you will probably appreciate. And we really pride ourselves on our interdisciplinary focus. In fact, we feel that interdisciplinarity is one of our superpowers. And so we try to create the situation where our disciplines across campus can collaborate and help address these big problems that face our world and our society at large. And so within the larger university community, the Nicholas School of the Environment has a more than 70-year track record of leadership on science and policy in coastal and marine environments. Our Marine Lab was founded in 1938 and is the heart of the work we do in this area in coastal and ocean environments. I'd also like to take the opportunity to congratulate the World Food Program for winning the UN Nobel Prize this year. It was just announced, and so I think it's an incredible vote of confidence in the importance of multilateral institutions at this time in our history. And it also points to the importance of the work that has been done and the importance of the work that lays ahead in these next few years, I think, as Marcela has so eloquently pointed out, that we will all be facing in light of the pandemic and the current economic crisis that surely will follow. So I can only echo the wisdom of the Nobel panel in recognizing the importance of the work at this time. In the Nicholas School of the Environment, as part of the work that we also do, we partner with the Nicholas Institute for Environmental and Policy Solutions. So we have two sides: the Nicholas School that does the research and works on the outreach, and the Nicholas Institute, who does the outreach and then strives to put this knowledge into use in society. So what we basically try to do within the university is we create this continuum of working on knowledge generation to knowledge use to knowledge translation. And we do that through the school and through the Nicholas Institute. So we are boundary crossers, and we are celebrating crossing yet another boundary with you all in this partnership today. One of the areas where we pride ourselves is the work that we have been doing on small-scale fisheries. And this is the agreement that we also sort of celebrate today. We know that communities around the world depend on these fisheries for food and jobs. And all too often they are hidden from policymakers. They're invisible in terms of the impacts that they have, the consequences that they have. They're not counted, they can be marginalized. And of course, as Marcela has also identified, they can be particularly vulnerable not only to economic crises, but they're also vulnerable to the biggest challenges from climate change. The partnership that we celebrate today with FAO allows us to connect our faculty and the UN effectively to try to partner in eradicating hunger and pursuing this noble ideal of ending poverty. So it's a vote in confidence, as I've sort of already nodded to, in the importance of multilateral institutions at this time, the collaboration that multilateral organizations cultivate, the capacity that they have for addressing the complexity of these maddeningly wicked problems that we face at the global scale. And the Nicholas School proudly supports the efforts that you take and is very excited to take this next step with you in partnership. We have started this collaboration with FAO by working together on the illuminating hidden harvest projects. And this global assessment will play and has played and will continue to play an incredibly important role in assessing small-scale fisheries and the potential for more sustainable development and their role in it. The collaboration also includes World Fish, and I know Mancha and Giulia Gorelli will talk a little bit more about this later, and I very much look forward to that. And I just want to celebrate our excitement about the potential that we have today to study and impact the way that policymakers and decision makers will see and think about small-scale fisheries, so we can move these issues up on the global agenda across many different countries. We have found ways to engage with more than 200 individuals from research institutions on the public side, on the civil society side, and to incorporate into the research process. So we know that this is a terrific example of how you create globally relevant knowledge co-production, and we celebrate that and being part of that. And then finally, I just want to emphasize, and you'll hear a little bit more about this later, the collaboration with FAO and how we have been able to connect our students, not only to research, but how you have real policy impact. And the students in the Nicholas School are motivated by pursuing work that gives their lives meaning and purpose. Our students are hungry for the experiences that allow them to put their knowledge into real world applications. And this is a perfect example of how they can actually do this. And by doing so, it does give them the opportunity to see how they can have greater purpose and meaning in their lives. And so I can't think of a better opportunity than involving them in this kind of work with the FAO within the United Nations system, especially at this time, given the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize and the importance of this work and going forward. More than 20 Duke students have been involved in this partnership so far, and we look forward to continuing to generate these opportunities into the future. We've had postdoctoral researchers, master's students, undergraduate students, doctoral students involved in the analysis of global databases, summer fellowships at FAO headquarters in Rome on inland fisheries, investigating gender issues alongside with FAO technical staff, just enormously important opportunities. And you'll hear a lot more about that in the video later on. And then finally, we have had the pleasure of hosting some of our FAO colleagues at the Marine Lab last year for a retreat that Javier facilitated, and we very much look forward to the day in the hopefully not too distant future when we can invite you back, Manuel and all of our other FAO colleagues, to come to our beautiful campus, which you can see at least in part behind me right here, and then also down to the Marine Lab to visit in person. So I want to thank you all for this enormously exciting opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Stillman, not only for your excellent remarks regarding this partnership, but perhaps even more so for your optimism and your very palpable enthusiasm, something I think we can all agree we've not had enough of during this COVID period. So thank you very much. I think we all share your excitement. It is now my pleasure to introduce Manuel Barange, who is the Director of the Fisheries Division at FAO in Rome, who will address the role of young researchers in developing decision-making tools for innovative solutions for small-scale fisheries. Manuel, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Stillman, Tom, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to be here today to formalize a partnership between FAO and Duke that has been alive and kicking for some time. And I thank the Dean for particularly noting the fact that our sister agency in Rome, the World Food Programme, was awarded the Nobel Prize today. It's a great achievement, and by association, we actually feel honored as well. Now, before I get into matter, I hope that you all agree that I've been given the toughest assignment today, because I've been asked to talk not just about innovative decision-making tools, about solutions for small-scale fisheries, but also on the role of young researchers in reaching these. And frankly, the future of quantum physics in a post-COVID world would have been an easier topic to tackle. But let me start by telling you who we are and why we are teaming up with Duke. Over and above, of course, the fact that you have superpowers, as the Dean has just mentioned. That was not in my brief, by the way. Good to know. Now, FAO Fisheries deals with all aspects in the fisheries and aquaculture sector, from statistics, data collection and analysis, policy development, management advice, sustainability, post-harvest, trade and market issues, consumption, nutrition and health, innovation, and many others. We have an overarching vision, and that is of a world in which fisheries and aquaculture make an appreciable contribution to human well-being to food security, and to poverty alleviation. But we have a modest workforce and a modest budget to achieve all these. So we cannot and should not do everything that is required just by ourselves. We are a knowledge-based organization, and thus we must have a good and dynamic link with academic and research institutions. But some partnerships, like the one with Duke, allows us to go one step further. Let me call this step reciprocal enlightening, because we help each other with our structural limitations in a way that adds value to what we individually do, for the both of us, individually as well as collectively. Take, for example, one of the largest active contributions that we have, the Illuminating Hidden Harvest project. The study conducted by FAO with Duke and the Wolfie Center in Malaysia. FAO's work greatly benefits from the well-defined, scientifically robust and inclusive data collection and analysis methods developed by Duke. This allows us to engage with global policymakers, with national governments, and with international and national researchers with knowledge on our side. And I should think that this opened doors for Duke as well in terms of the impact and recognition of your work. Combined, we create new methodologies and the capacity to push the agenda in a way that is not possible for us individually. Reciprocal enlightening. So what is the role of young scientists in this process? Well, I'm a middle-aged Caucasian male. I'm on the wrong side of history. So I have to answer this question with humbleness and with caution, but I will do so using my own experience. When I was a PhD student, I remember one occasion when a colleague and I developed a method to use echosonders on research ships to measure the swimming speeds of fish schools under the hull. We thought it was cool. It was something that we did because it was cool. But our supervisors were amazed. They thought, you know, this method is so obvious. Why did they not think of it themselves? And that is the key. The involvement of young researchers in the IHH study is not just a way to train a new generation of scientists. It is an attempt to bring fresh eyes to an old problem. Someone said that a painter paints what otherwise is not there. We expect young researchers to find what we don't seek, to ask the questions we thought did not need answers, to quantify our qualifiers. Now, an important objective of FAO is also to share the IHH's processes and methods with researchers and government officials throughout FAO countries. And we expect young researchers from Duke to stay involved in this endeavor, further strengthening this science policy nexus that we try to strengthen across the world. But I must not limit our links to the IHH study, because we have other collaborations. For example, the participatory methodologies developed and applied in the mapping of small-scale women organizations in several African countries, or fishers organizations in the Caribbean. These were important and fruitful collaborations which allow us to provide demand-driven and content-specific support in the future. Let me close by reminding us all that we are about to enter the UN Decade for Ocean Science, 2021-2030. This is a golden opportunity for all of us, and in particular the younger ones, to reshape the future. The FAO voluntary guidelines for securing small-scale fisheries is the source of much of our common work. It calls for research organizations and institutions to support capacity building, to allow small-scale fishing communities to participate in the research and to use the research findings. Now, this is at the heart of the MOU, to produce credible, relevant, legitimate, and responsibly interpreted information, openly accessible at all scales, to those where it belongs and where it can change lives. I thank you for walking this path with us and for making us younger and more relevant in the process. And with that, thank you for listening. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks very much, Manuel, for those very inspiring remarks about the role of young researchers in bringing the future to us, the future that we need, one in which promotes improved solutions for small-scale fisheries and sustainability. I now invite you all to watch a brief video which highlights the experiences of Duke University students working on FAO Fisheries projects.
Hello, my name is Javier Basurto. I'm Associate Professor at the Duke Marine Lab and the Nicola School of the Environment.
Hello, my name is Nicole Franz and I'm a fishery planning analyst in the Fisheries division of the Food and Agriculture Organization based in Rome, Italy.
Hi, I'm John Verdon. I'm the director of the Ocean Policy Research Program at Duke's Nicholas Institute. And I've spent most of my career advising governments and studying how they regulate the way that people use the oceans.
FAO and Duke have a common global interest in promoting knowledge and research in service and benefit of sustainable fisheries and the communities that depend on them. The Memorandum of Understanding will formalize a collaboration between both organizations that started in 2017. It will further facilitate access, exchange of information, expertise, knowledge, and facilitate the creation of a program of exchange including visiting fellows and placement of students and technical staff between both organizations.
The collaboration between Duke and FAO has directly been formative for my career as it led to my current employment. At the end of my master's degree, I was asked to join the FAO small-scale fisheries team to help work on the Illuminating Hidden Harvest project that is shared between FAO and Duke, as well as WorldFish. And the job has been a complete extension of my education at Duke and now my education at FAO. It's been a crash course in everything from international policy to coalition building to statistical analysis and big data.
This position has been absolutely instrumental to my development as an early career scientist, and has given me incredible experience transferring from a work study position to my first full-time job, and as a stepping stone to my own personal PhD research.
We therefore look very much forward to strengthen this collaboration, including through fellowship programs on small-scale fisheries, but also beyond, to expand and explore other areas of collaboration in the context of value chains or aquaculture, for example.
Our joint work creates benefits for the services that FAO provides to its member countries through the implementation of evidence-based strategies and policies, food security, poverty alleviation, nutrition, among others.
The collaboration between FAO and Duke University has already generated very concrete connections between science and policy in support of small-scale fisheries. It supports the availability of a sound scientific base to assist fisheries managers and other interested parties in making decisions. And that is exactly what is called for in the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries.
For Duke, it will further enhance the opportunities we create and can provide to our students in the form of involvement in real-world research projects with direct global policy impact.
This collaboration also allows brilliant young students and researchers from Duke University to better understand FAO's role in facilitating the uptake and the use of demand-driven and applied research in policies and in concrete actions at the country level.
Working with Duke, the UN, and WorldFish has given me the opportunity to analyze international legislation.
I've gained countless technical data and communication skills, and have furthered my understanding of the complexities of working in the small-scale fisheries sphere, much more than I thought was possible given this stage in my career.
What was important for me at that time was that I got to oversee and implement the study of existing indicators measuring those components of small-scale fisheries in peer-reviewed literature, and that included managing a master's student and several undergraduates, implementing this research protocol and systematic search for existing publications, and encoding those publications for how those indicators were conceptualized and measured.
It will allow them to get exposed to understanding of how global diplomacy works and the fisheries, science, and policy interface within the United Nations system.
The Illuminating Hidden Harvest project was a rare and rich opportunity for young professionals like myself to step outside of the classroom and to learn and understand marine fisheries policy and management at the international scale. This experience allowed me to interact with professionals at the top of their field from all over the world.
I've also felt so privileged to get to work with such incredible scientists and policymakers from Duke, from the FAO, and more.
Small-scale fisheries are the ocean's largest employers, and they're often ignored by governments because they don't have the information to support them. And so that's really what excites me about this partnership, is that you can connect some of the world's thought leaders, some of the best science and information that we can generate on small-scale fisheries directly to FAO and to the governments who can use it and hopefully help support these communities with some of the challenges that they face.
I've been lucky to be part of two great teams in this work. The Duke team I joined as a master's student, and the FAO Small-Scale Fisheries team that I joined in Rome. I'm grateful and incredibly lucky for this partnership and happy to continue being a part of it.
I was really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm excited to watch the continued success of the project, as well as that of the entire IHH team as they go on to explore their own careers in marine conservation fisheries. I know that I've made strong personal connections in the field that will last throughout my career.
I hope you all enjoyed the video, which I think very effectively conveyed and captured what this science policy nexus for sustainable fisheries looks like in practice. We will now move into the next phase of our program, which features presentations on the Illuminating Hidden Harvest project, the contribution of small-scale fisheries to sustainable development. We will first hear from Giulia Gorelli, who I'm very pleased to introduce now. As I mentioned at the start of our program, Giulia is the Illuminating Hidden Harvest project coordinator. Giulia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I'm gonna quickly share my screen. I hope everyone can see that. Please let me know if it's not the case. And good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So with this presentation, Mar and myself are going to give a brief overview of Illuminating Hidden Harvests, or IHH, which is an ongoing global study on small-scale fisheries that is carried out as a collaboration between FAO, Duke University, and World Fish. And as you will see, IHH is a fairly complex and multidisciplinary study that I think provides a great example of the strengths and the synergies that can come out of this collaboration, as it has been already said, and that speaks a lot on the value of the partnership that we are celebrating today between FAO and Duke University. So IHH builds on a previous study called the Hidden Harvest that provided some of the first estimates of the role and importance of small-scale fisheries at the global level. In particular, Hidden Harvest brought attention to the very large number of fishers and fish workers involved in small-scale fisheries, mainly in developing countries, small-scale fisheries catch and utilization, with the majority of the catch in developing countries being produced by small-scale fisheries and used for local human consumption, and the significant role that women play in the harvesting, pre- and post-harvesting activities. Yet, there are still big questions that remain to be answered to fully understand the contributions and impacts of small-scale fisheries, such as what is the importance of small-scale fisheries for food and nutrition security, local economies, and poverty eradication? How are the overall benefits generated by small-scale fisheries distributed? What is the interaction of small-scale fisheries with the environment? And how are small-scale fisheries governed around the world? So, as we can see, small-scale fisheries are facing a chicken and egg dilemma, where the lack of specific data and information of small-scale fisheries, particularly on their role for livelihoods and food and nutrition security, contributes to the marginalization of the sector in the policymaking process, which in turn reinforces a lack of investment in the collection of specific data. And providing the evidence and the information to break this circle is the main motivation behind IHH. And in this sense, IHH will also support the implementation of the voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication, which were endorsed by the FAO Committee on Fisheries in 2014. So within this context, the specific objectives of IHH are to generate scientifically sound evidence to quantify the role that small-scale fisheries play for sustainable development at global level for the three pillars, economic, social, environmental, and governance, to fill knowledge gaps around benefits and impacts of small-scale fisheries, and equally important to develop rigorous methodologies for the data collection and synthesis of small-scale fisheries data, which can then be employed even beyond the scope of IHH itself. Finally, the main target audiences for IHH that we expect to benefit from the body of knowledge and quantitative evidence generated by IHH are national governments, international organizations and fisheries institutions, civil society organizations, NGOs, fishing communities, and science and development communities. And it is worth noting that these groups are not only target audiences, but also importantly, collaborators in many cases, as more than 200 people were engaged in the study as data and information providers. So it was really a collaborative process. And now I'm gonna pass the floor to Mar for more details on the methodologies of IHH.
Thank you, Giulia. I'm gonna quickly share my screen now. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, taking off right where Giulia left off, we are anchoring our study in the context of the three different dimensions of sustainable development, environmental, economic, and social. And we consider the governance dimension as well as a mechanism to enable these contributions. For our approach, we develop a list of indicators specific to each dimension and based on an extensive literature review and consultation with more than 30 experts, and we're connecting the outputs to the Sustainable Development Goals, not just Goal 14, specific to life below water, but other goals that span the multiple sectors that small-scale fisheries touches upon. For example, poverty eradication and nutrition and food security, among others. In terms of the data sources that we are using, we are incorporating existing global and regional data sets that have specific information on small-scale fisheries related to our list of indicators, such as labor force surveys, etc. But our main data comes from national level case studies in 58 countries. These case studies compiled existing information on the list of indicators and will be used along with our other information on other databases to extrapolate to the information at the global level. We also designed an ad hoc questionnaire that was sent to all FAO member countries, in which we ask for high-level figures on a subset of the indicators, focusing on the disaggregated data between marine and inland, small and large-scale fisheries. And we are using this official data to help triangulate the information obtained via the other approaches. We obtained responses for 104 countries as well. And finally, we commissioned a series of what we call thematic studies that are meant to highlight specific themes in local contexts for which global figures are not relevant. These national level case studies, for them, the overall approach consisted in contracting in-country specialists and experts with knowledge on availability of secondary data sources. We asked these teams to provide disaggregated data specific for small-scale fisheries using literature reviews, proxy variables, extrapolation techniques, and expert elicitation methods as well. In many cases, we had indirect involvement of government representatives in the building of these case studies. We also developed a handbook detailing the illuminating hidden harvest methodology to be followed for these case studies, which was accompanied by a set of data compilation templates, and all the teams that we work with went through a one-on-one training session with us to review the key aspects of the methodology. The 58 countries were chosen based on existing data that showed their absolute and relative importance on fisheries, employment in fisheries, and as well as geographic representation. Overall, the set of case studies represent about 70% of the marine catch and 60% of the inland catch worldwide. The key indicators for which we are producing global estimates in the environmental dimension are catch, capacity, effort, and efficiency of small-scale fisheries. For the economic dimension, we are producing global estimates for things like employment, dependency, landed value, and exports of small-scale fisheries. For the social dimension, which is heavily focused on nutrition, we are producing global estimates for indicators like catch for direct consumption and contribution of small-scale fisheries to animal source foods, micronutrient contributions, domestic fish supply, and dietary protein contributions as well. For the governance dimension, we are focusing on formal institutional arrangements that relate to small-scale fisheries, and more specifically on the rights of management within small-scale fisheries. So with that, thank you all for your attention. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, on the thematic studies, we commissioned several studies by global experts, like I mentioned earlier, and the following are just a few examples from each dimension where we really zoom in into the local context of these issues. So for the economic dimension, we have a study on the contributions of selected small-scale fishery value chains to GDP. For the environmental dimension, we have a study on the fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions in the small-scale fishery sector. Within the social dimension, we also have a study, a specific focus also on gender in small-scale fisheries and how it impacts the multiple, all the other dimensions that we touch on. And we also have a series of nutrition-themed studies. So for example, the global nutrient potential of small-scale fisheries, among others. And finally, a study on the informal governance in small-scale fisheries as part of the governance dimension. So now with that, thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Mar and Giulia, for that excellent joint presentation. I think you've provided a really good overview for all of us regarding the project and its objectives. I'd now like to transition into the question and answer segment of our event. And we have a number of questions from our captive audience, our very engaged audience. The first of which comes from Marianne Falardu, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I believe this would be for Mar and Giulia. And the question is whether the list of indicators developed as part of the Illuminating Hidden Harvests is publicly available.
I can take this. So we are planning to publish the full IHH report in 2021, so next year. Well, I can take education also to reply to another question that is very related. And yes, IHH will include small-scale fisheries, both in the marine and the inland sectors. It's all going to be published in the IHH report, due to be launched next year.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Giulia. The next question I'd like to open to all of our speakers, to whomever would like to field this one. And this question relates to definitions, specifically, what is the definition of small-scale fisheries for marine and inland sectors? So over to all of our speakers and to whomever might wish to answer that one.
So I don't know, I can speak as for the approach that we have taken within Illuminating Hidden Harvests. So we all know there is no unique definition of small-scale fisheries. Each country may apply a different definition of small-scale fisheries. So for IHH, what we did was to collect data on small-scale fisheries in the different countries using the definition that is commonly being applied in the country. But in addition to that, we asked our country collaborators to characterize the small-scale fisheries that they were including in the data collection using a characterization matrix that basically tells us a lot on the characteristics of the fisheries that they're including as small-scale fisheries in the data that they provided to us, which allows us to understand what really are small-scale fisheries in the different countries.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Giulia. In a moment, I would like to, if I may, turn to each of our speakers and invite them to offer our audience key takeaway messages that they would like to leave the audience with, if there's anything in particular that the audience is to remember from their remarks today. What would be most important? What would be the main takeaway? But before doing that, I'd like to stay with Giulia and Mar a bit longer and ask you both perhaps to share with us a bit what you've learned so far on the project, and perhaps what's surprised you, what's emerged that you didn't expect.
Mar, do you want to take this?
Sorry, just realized I was mute. Yeah, of course. This has been definitely a huge learning experience for me. And I think, you know, in my experience in working with all the countries that we've developed the case studies with, it's been quite illuminating to see the challenges that each country faces when it comes to collecting good, accurate data. It's things that if I go back to before my involvement with the IHH project, is things I sort of took for granted, and how how difficult the information on small-scale fisheries is to obtain at this level that we need it. That information is robust, that is accurate, that encompasses the whole country. Some of the indicators are certainly more easy or more difficult or challenging to tackle than others, and I'm seeing that on a first-hand basis. I'm learning how. What are some of the the difficulties that countries, whether they work for government organizations, nonprofits, or simply academic researchers, struggle to really obtain very good data. So it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of lessons that we are hopeful that we can share with this project about how these processes can be improved, so that we can create the knowledge basis that we're hoping to get to.
Great, thank you, Mar. Giulia, any thoughts from your side?
No, I mean, I concur with everything that Mar just said. I think the lessons that we learned are very important, and are an important outcome also of the study that can help us, move to the next phase, to what's next, what's after IHH, in improving the data that is being collected on small-scale fisheries.
Thanks, Giulia. And again, just before turning to our other speakers to ask for final takeaway messages for our audience, I'd like to pose one question that's just emerged in the Q&A box, and this comes from Tim Fitzgerald. The question is, will this effort look at the types and amounts of ODA going towards small-scale fisheries, and whether there is any correlation with the outcomes that are being measured?
Sorry, can I ask to define ODA, the acronym for?
Development assistance.
Mar, do you
I guess the question would be speaking towards the extent to which this initiative or project might be factoring in or considering the level of resources going towards sustainable small-scale fisheries, if that's something that's being focused upon.
Yeah, I think, Mar, you can probably speak to this better, but this is something that we are taking into account in the data collection, right?
We did plan on it, yes. We definitely asked the question in terms of the level of support that is going to, or investment that is going towards the small-scale fisheries sector. So it's something we considered for sure.
Excellent. Thanks. And if I may, I'd now like to turn to you, Manuel, to ask you to leave us with a final takeaway message for the audience based upon your experience thus far and what you've said.
Thank you, Tom. And if I may address Tim's question as well, just simply to say, I think it's a very, very good question. Overseas development aid is very much focused on small-scale fisheries at present, has been for some time. And I think it is absolutely appropriate to analyze the impacts of that investment over time. So I think it's a very good question to keep at the back of our minds. And I think that what I'll perhaps just finish in saying is, early on, somebody asked, how do you define small-scale fisheries? And I smiled because the people from FAO know that I've asked that question myself, and we have all asked that question before. And it's not an easy question to answer, because there are very different types of small-scale fisheries, and perhaps that is the key of it, that they are not all the same. Inside some small-scale fisheries, there is a large-scale fisheries waiting to emerge. In some of them, it's just a way of living. Some of them is because it is subsistence. They are extremely complex and different. And so the value of work such as the IHH is actually really to understand that complexity, because if you don't understand that complexity, you cannot find solutions that address the different examples across. So that is the first element. And finally, perhaps also to recognize that small-scale fisheries per se are not good, and large-scale fisheries are bad per se. There are good and bad cases in both. And this is very important because some small-scale fisheries are part of the solution and some of them are part of the problem. And again, unless we understand them properly and we quantify and qualify what they represent, it's very difficult for us to find solutions and convince countries to implement those. With that, I'll just like to, perhaps it's the last time that I speak, Tom, just thank everybody that has been present here, more than 100 participants. It's really great. And thank you for your attention, and thank you, Tom, for your chairmanship of this event.
Thank you so much, Manuel. Really appreciate that. I don't know if we have still with us Marcela or Dr. Stillman. If either of you are still with us, perhaps you might like to offer a brief takeaway message for our audience.
I'll jump in, Tom, and basically say that I think we're at a very unique moment in history right now. And Marcela said it more eloquently than I could have, but I will just reiterate that I think the kind of partnership that is highlighted here is the exact sort of balm that we need for the globe right now, because it highlights not only what we can do with the future of leadership in scientifically driven, evidence-informed decision-making, but it demonstrates why we need partnerships, global partnerships, at this time to address these really complex, wicked problems. And I am so proud that our university can be partnering with FAO in this MOU. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for the foresight and for the vision. And I look forward to all the great work that will continue.
Thanks very much. Marcela, any final thoughts, takeaways from your side?
Well, that was so nicely said. I couldn't add anything. I just like to say how excited we are about this partnership. We saw the beauty of this work together through the video and also on the concrete examples, and also very encouraging because it really shows us that by getting together the academic world with a multilateral system, we can really effectively build that bridge that we're talking about today at a time when science, evidence-based is really necessary, ever more necessary to guide policy decisions. If not, again, we will not be able to achieve the SDGs. So we're delighted about this partnership. We know that Duke University and FAO have been working for some time, as Manuel said, but now the idea of formalizing the partnership gives us opportunities to actually expand also the impact of the partnership into the future. So thank you so very much. Thanks to all of our partners. Now we can call you formal partners at Duke. And thank you so very much to our Washington office for having organized this so nicely.
Thank you so much, Marcela. I hope you've all enjoyed this program as much as I have. I think we've covered a great deal of territory and learned quite a lot in just 1 hour. In particular, I think we learned from Marcela about the power of partnerships. From Toddi Stillman, we learned about how we can and will cross boundaries by uniting the knowledge, expertise, and tools that both Duke and FAO bring to bear in favor of promoting solutions for small-scale fisheries. From Manuel, we learned about the concept of reciprocal enlightenment and how this exciting new partnership between Duke and FAO will train and inspire a new generation of researchers and encourage them to bring fresh eyes to an old problem, as he so eloquently said. And then, of course, we heard a great deal of detail and substance from both Giulia and Mar about the exciting illuminating hidden harvest projects. So in closing, on behalf of FAO and Duke, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today and for your great participation and engagement in this discussion. And I would, of course, and most importantly, like to thank our outstanding cast of speakers from FAO and Duke. Please be on the lookout for additional events that we at FAO North America will be organizing in the days and weeks to come. And until then, and in the meantime, please stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.